to the first of the press conference interviews for NDK 22. Presenting. If you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm Elizabeth Maxwell. Do you want me to, do I?
We're just going to go across. I'll point to each group individually to let them ask a question, kind of panning across, and then we'll go from there. We should be scheduled till 10 o'clock.
All right, cool. This is like the fanciest press interview I've ever done.
Yeah, our attire is very professional, as you can see.
Well, I guess by professional I mean well organized.
Like that one.
I'm Marcus from Kaiju no Kami Creativity by Design, LLC.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, I guess we're doing
I was going
introductions.
to say, like, questions. You can go questions. If you
Oh,
want.
question and then
Like,
introduction. I thought it was introduction, then
I was
questions.
going to have you introduce with each question, but okay, we can also do the introduction first.
Hi, I'm JP, and this is Bo from So Like You Know Radio.
Hi.
I'm Heather, and this is PJ. We're from Nerdfeed.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
My name is Philip. I'm from DMGIS.com and AreaDMG.com.
I'm Jim, and this is Chris, and we're from GameSlave.
Hello.
Question?
So you've worked in all different styles of acting, voice acting, small acting. What have you taken from each performance, and what helped you grow?
Like, what have I taken from the different forms of? Well, yeah, like you said, each one is really different, and each one has its own little ticks. And one of the things they've always said is it's like just because you can do well on film and TV doesn't mean that you can do well in voiceover, although many people do cross over. And I mean, they're kind of like night and day. Like, voiceover reminds me more of theater than it does of traditional film and TV acting. Because with film and TV, the camera is so amplifying. So really almost all you have to do is like think like internally what you're feeling, and you don't even have to like attempt to do anything with your face, and it'll show through enough that the camera will pick it up and it'll be like this beautiful, subtle performance. But if I were to do that in voiceover, I would sound like a robot or like a dead person. And I actually really use my body a lot in voice acting. You know, it's kind of like a way to short circuit an emotion. You know, it's like if you get your body into it too, it tends to come out through the voice. And I'm sorry, you said so what
did it help to then make you a stronger actor?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think definitely being able to do all of those, even though they're different, they do ultimately inform the others. I did a lot when I was in theater school, like studying to move to LA and do film and TV. I learned a lot of voice work, which actually helped me kind of drop into more of my real voice. I talked about in my panel yesterday that I think particularly women in our culture oftentimes don't speak in their true voice because there's societal expectations that higher pitched voices are more pleasing or are considered more attractive. And so I know for me, I actually talked a little bit up higher here when I was younger, and it wasn't until I went through school that I kind of dropped down into my real voice. But yeah, basically they all inform the other. I don't know if I have any like specific lessons that I can think of. I'm just glad that I did everything that I did, because I feel like every training that I've had, whether or not it was directly related to one field, has ended up helping me in all of them.
What does success look like to you, or feel like to you during in voice acting?
It's funny you should ask that, because I'm very big into doing like vision boards and like imagination exercises. And I remember when I was very first starting out in voiceover, one of the like, visceral ways that I would know that I had achieved success was when I saw somebody cosplaying a character that I originated at a convention. So I still remember like the first time that I saw a Winter Schnee cosplay, and I was like, I've arrived! But it's changed a little since then. I still have, dreams of I would like to helm franchises and there are specific characters that like I would love to play if they ever decide to go back and add voices into older video games or redo animes. But one of the biggest feelings for me of success is that I can actually make a living doing this now, because it's so difficult, particularly in the US, to make a decent living doing the arts. And so it's kind of like every day that I wake up and I'm like, I don't have to go work a job that I dislike to support my art habit, that feels like success to me. Yeah.
We were wondering, how does it feel when it comes to taking something like a role as large as the Major in the new Ghost in the Shell, or starting to come into a role that's growing larger like Ymir in the new Attack on Titan season? How does it feel?
Well, with the Major, it was honestly terrifying. And that was partially because I was so new to voice acting at that time. The Major was only the second or the third anime dub character that I had done, like, ever, period. So I was still very much getting my feet and becoming confident. And I mean, there were definitely some moments where I was like, do I deserve to be voicing like this iconic character? And then also because with the Major, who's existed for so long before the Arise performance, obviously there's an enormous fan expectation and a personal expectation as well, because I grew up with Ghost in the Shell, and Mary Elizabeth McGlynn was like, you know, an inspiration to me as a kid. So there can be a lot of weight. I try and ignore it because I don't think it helps the performance in the least. You know, the more self-aware and self-conscious you are in the booth, the less free and interesting your performance is going to be. With Ymir, it was kind of a different story. If anything, I've been so happy that her and Krista have been taking off and becoming so popular with the fans in that franchise, because I think that their story is so unique and important and needs to be showcased in that way. And so with them, it's kind of more like I just feel very honored anytime I get to kind of, you know, interact with that anime and with the fans of that anime.
Thank you.
Going back to the industries that you've worked in, how do you feel that the industries that you've worked in have changed in regards to their treatment of the people that work in them from when you started to now?
Gosh, you know, I've only been working in voiceover for about 5 years, so it's like my snippet of experience is very small compared to somebody like, you know, Lex and Sandy, who have been working for decades. And I've been lucky enough that I've always had really great experiences. I know a lot of people have like horror stories of how they've been treated at jobs and in the booth. One of the things that constantly amazes me is how motion capture and performance capture is evolving in video games. I've been involved in, you know, huge production movies where I have not been given nearly the rehearsal time and the time with the story creators and the directors that I am in video games, like AAA video games. I mean, they have the budgets of those movies, but it's almost like there's more freedom to be like a real actor and artist in video games these days. You know, we do multiple table reads, multiple rehearsals, and we can really dig into the characters in a way that a lot of times with film and TV we don't have time to anymore. So that's been an interesting thing. Also, simuldubs have been kind of interesting too. I have mixed feelings about them because I know as a fan and as a consumer of anime.
What is anime?
Well, I've come up with a new term. It's all the anime I'm in is anime.
That's
Sorry,
not bad.
Dutch.
That's great.
Simuldubs are great for the fans and for consumers. And I know that as a fan, I love not having to wait so long to watch things, but it has definitely changed the way that dubs are created. The really fast turnaround times means that we have less time in the booth to really nail a character or go back and like finesse, you know, those subtle parts in the story. And it's honestly also changed the way that they're casting anime, because the deadlines are so short. They kind of have to stick with the local actors more, whereas, you know, with Attack on Titan, for instance, if you look at season 1, you know, a huge portion of the main actors don't even live in Dallas. They live in New York, they live in LA. And, you know, Mike McFarland was given the freedom to really choose the actor that he thought was perfect for the role and not be bound by, you know, constraints of time and of location. And that's just becoming much harder with simuldubs. So, yeah, like I said, like as a professional and as a fan, I feel a little torn about them, but you know, the industry always evolves and changes, and with simuldubs, it's still evolving. So we'll see where it ends up, because that's not going away anytime soon. So we're just gonna have to evolve with it.
What's a piece of media that's really influenced the way that you approach acting? So like a book or film, TV, anything like that?
The way that I approach acting.
Or that you've like taken a lesson from or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's honestly, for me, I tend to watch movies and TV as a way to try and kind of like get away from, like as an escape. So I tend to take more of my lessons from like teachers and books and classes and so forth. And I really try, because when I first was in theater school and I was taking like film history classes and you know, really dialing into acting, it ruined movies for me for a while, because I started overanalyzing everything, and it was like I couldn't enjoy a performance because I was watching every little tick in the actors' faces. So I kind of made, honestly, like a conscious decision to try and divorce myself and leave that kind of like analytical part of my brain behind when I watch movies and TV, so as not to ruin my experience as an, you know, a fan and an observer. But I'm trying to think if there are any specific pieces. I mean, Battlestar Galactica was kind of the newer one. I haven't actually seen the original series. Was a bit eye-opening for me, because I've always really been into sci-fi and fantasy. And it's in the world of film and TV kind of what I would like to become known for. And Battlestar Galactica was one of the first sci-fi shows that I had seen where I felt like it was taken as seriously as, like, you know, an Oscar, you know, nominated movie. And kind of like was like, oh, like the perception of sci-fi and fantasy really is changing in, you know, the media. And the actors in that were so phenomenal. So yeah, if I think of anything else, I'll shout it out to you.
All right, great.
So being that I'm a teacher and anime is such a big thing in our culture these days, I have students that are like 3rd, 4th graders that are like, yeah, I want to be an anime voice actor when I grow up. Do you have any words of advice for kids that young that are thinking about it already at the age they're at?
Yeah, I would say at that age, continue enjoying anime as a fan, and if that's a direction that you want to go in, then start exploring like acting in a general sense. You know, get involved with your community theater. You know, take, you know, acting classes at school if they're offered. Take improv if you can find it. Make plays with your friends and film them on your phone. Stuff like that, because at that young of an age, I don't know if there's anything super specific that I feel like you can do towards going into anime dubbing specifically, but getting familiar with and comfortable and starting to like stretch your limbs within acting in general is awesome and priceless and important. Even being like physically active and getting into your body with like dance or sports is helpful too. Because there's definitely like a voice-body connection. So yeah, I would say like keep feeding your passion and with anime, and then try and take some acting classes.
So what do you think the most difficult part is about the whole artistic process?
For me, it's been having to marry left and right brain so much. And I actually honestly forget which one is the artistic and which is the pragmatic. But as actors, obviously as artists, we have to use the creative side of our brain, duh. But I honestly didn't realize until I got into my mid-20s just how important it is to be able to market yourself as like a small business. And
Did you accidentally summon me?
No.
Siri,
I
I
apologize.
was just thinking about you.
Sorry.
Oh.
It's your ghost.
I know, right? I love that it says transcendentally too. But yeah, you really, in order to be successful and to start to book enough work to make a living, you really do have to be a consummate marketer. You have to be able to create a social media presence for yourself. Like all of these super like business pragmatic, logical oriented tasks that have nothing to do with the art of acting. And that was a complete surprise to me when I like graduated from college and moved to LA and was like, oh, you mean auditions don't just fall in your lap anymore? You mean your agent just doesn't send you out on 5 auditions a day when you're starting out? So balancing that and making sure that the art side of my brain is still being nourished and fed as much as the business side, because for me it's easy to default to that, has been one of my hugest challenges.
Wished you taken like more business classes in art school as well?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a huge failing of programs in colleges in our country. Can't speak for other countries. But, I mean, the reality is that very few people can just be artists and then be fully managed by somebody else who can handle every aspect of their career. I mean, I absolutely think that these marketing classes should be taught in tandem with the art side of it. I was lucky. I finally, after a couple years, stumbled onto an amazing workshop by a woman named Dallas Travers, who basically does just that. She teaches marketing and small business techniques for artists, and it completely changed my career. Like, that was when I started pursuing voice acting, and that was when, you know, everything kind of started taking off for me. So, yeah. Any deans of schools that are listening to this interview, rethink your curriculum.
So you voiced Lady Urbosa and Lady Riju in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Are you a fan of the Zelda series?
I am definitely a fan, not as much as some people are, because I grew up in a Sega household.
Oh.
That's right there. Gotta go fast.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So I didn't get
Honestly,
exposed to Zelda until much later in life. And I loved it, but it just wasn't as much a part of my childhood as it was for a lot of people. And it wasn't my fault. It's my brother's fault. He's the one who bought the consoles. But yeah, he was a diehard Sega fan, so I didn't get a Nintendo console into my home until a lot later in life.
Do you have a favorite Zelda game?
Probably, I know it's cliche, probably Ocarina of Time for me, but I haven't played some of the like super earlier ones, and I feel like when I'm able to, I probably will. I have a huge place in my heart for like older classic gaming.
Yes.
And I don't know, I mean, also cliche, but I mean, Breath of the Wild to me it still blows my mind every time it loads up on my screen.
Gives
I
you
know
that
I'm
little
biased.
like gaming flutter in your heart where you're like, I'm so
Oh man, my boyfriend and I will literally leave, like, I'm also a huge fan of video game music, like, I buy soundtracks, like, I listen to them in my off time, and we will actually, like when he's, in, like, one of the temples, like, we'll just, like, leave the music playing while we're eating dinner, and it'll be, like, this beautiful, like, relaxing ambient music in the background.
Sounds like an ideal relationship right there.
There are pros and cons to dating somebody else in the industry because he's also a voice actor, and that is definitely one of the pros. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So going back to fandoms and such, what do you think so far of NDK in Colorado?
It's been so lovely. I was kind of, I hate to do this, but since it's my first NDK, I don't like to compare things, but Dragon Con is one of my favorite conventions of all time. I have been there, I think, at least 6 times. And NDK reminds me of the essence of what it is that I like about Dragon Con so much. I like that it's a small family community feeling. The cosplays here have been amazing. I've seen like a much higher concentration of like cosplay than in a usual convention. And everybody's just been like so chill and warm, and like my panel yesterday, like I had really like thoughtful questions, and everybody was like really right there with me. So yeah, this might become my new Dragon Con.
What's the best interactions you've had with a fan at a convention?
The best. I love hearing stories of how like a fandom or a property has like been a part of somebody's life, or how it's like changed their life, or made their life better. Because I mean, for me, that was absolutely the case growing up. It's like I remember I would Chrono Trigger and a lot of the characters in that like changed how I viewed like, oh, nerdy girls can be cool. Like Luca is like a major like brainiac inventor, and like, she's awesome and cool. There was one, and for me this really hit home because of the story I told you guys earlier about my voice. There was a girl that reached out to me on Twitter, and she basically said, "Thank you so much for your portrayal of Lady Urbosa. I've been teased for my voice my whole life," because she has like a very, very deep voice for a woman. And she's like, "I've always been ashamed of it. I've always thought that it was ugly. But when I heard Urbosa talk like that, it changed my perspective and made me realize like maybe that's not right. Like maybe deep voices in women can be like beautiful and badass." And that was really personally very touching to me. And I've also had I don't know if any of you guys are Rooster Teeth or Ruby fans, but I play Winter Schnee, and her nemesis in the show is a character named Crow. And a convention that I was at, boyfriend and girlfriend cosplayer of Winter and Crow, the Crow surprised the Winter and proposed to her in front of my table where I was signing. So that was kind of a crazy cool thing to be a part of as well.
We're at last 5, so if we have any smaller questions or last wrap-ups, we'll go through one more round.
Do you have a role that you feel most proud about?
That I feel most proud about. It's like asking who your favorite child is to a mother.
Or maybe a role that had an influence on your life?
I mean, in a larger kind of sense, Ymir from Attack on Titan. That's also was my very first role in anime, which is kind of crazy. Personal favorite is Nikki from Camp Camp, which is a Rooster Teeth show, because I almost never get to do comedy. And Urbosa is kind of historical. I feel like that's going to be a hard one to top for me.
Oh, thank you. You do the voice of Midnight in My Hero Academia.
Mm-hmm.
If you got to choose anyone's superpower that you would have, what would you pick? I know it's called a quirk in the show, but it's still a superpower. Get over yourself.
You mean like an already existing one, or like if I could just pick a quirk?
If you could pick any quirk.
I have always wanted like the ability to go like 5 seconds back in time.
Just 5 seconds?
Well, I mean, I feel like asking for more is asking for a lot, you know, like, I feel like if you could just go back 5 seconds, like, you could influence a lot of things. Like, I don't want to get into the butterfly effect, so yeah, I don't want to be able to go, like, days back in time. But, like, 5 seconds, that'd be pretty cool.
You'd have to catch it pretty quick, though. You'd be like, oh, no, wait, oh,
You're sending out a tweet that you
Just
don't
barely
need to
miss
put
it.
out.
I know, right?
Yeah. I didn't mean to send.
Being able to control electronics would be pretty cool, like, in this day and age, too.
Yeah. That would be the superpower right there.
Yeah.
So time travel aside, where can people find you, and is there anything you'd like to go ahead and promote?
Oh yeah, so I'm most active on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter, I'm at About Elizabeth M, and Instagram, I'm just at Elizabeth Maxwell. I do also have a website, aboutelizabethmaxwell.com. And as far as stuff coming up, what can I talk about? I just announced Caulifla and Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. So hope you guys enjoy Kefla. If you're a game fan, I'm not allowed to say anything specific except for look out for me in Just Cause 4. What else? I think that's all I can say for now. It's always so hard to keep like the NDAs straight in your head. Thank you for asking.
Do you have a favorite line of verbosa dialogue that you could give us?
Unfortunately, I can't. That's one character where we're not allowed to like recreate the voice outside of recording sessions. So I can tell you what one of my favorite lines is.
Okay, sure.
It's at the end of the section where Urbosa gifts Urbosa's fury to Link, and she says, "Take good care of the princess and take good care of Hyrule too." And we just had so much fun with that line in the booth because of like the subtle implications of like, I wonder what's gonna happen with Link and Zelda, you know, like. So yeah, that was one of my favorite lines to record.
Keep it rolling.
Any interesting-
It's up to you at this point.
Any interesting story from working with Rooster Teeth, like behind the scenes?
Oh gosh. I mean, just in general, it's kind of like working with your wacky best friend or like your older brother and all of his crazy friends. Hi, Sandy. Hello. I mean, it's like, it's professional, don't get me wrong, but it's like some of the biggest laughs that like I ever have in the booth. And I don't know if you know Miles Luna.
Yes.
I feel like this is becoming a well-known fact about him, but when he directs, like he doesn't just like direct, he acts out every single character in the scene with you. So, so yeah, it's like I basically have heard him like impersonate almost every character that he interacts with in Ruby, which was an interesting experience trying to record a serious character. And I also found out that Rooster Teeth has a camera that they keep in the booth, and they record the voice actors while they record their voices, because a lot of times the animators will reference those videos, and when possible, they will try and add in your personal gestures into the characters if they fit. And I ran into a girl named Harley, who is one of the main animators for Ruby, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're Elizabeth. I've been, you know, doing a lot of work on Winter. Like, you did such a good job." And she was like, "We couldn't use any of your video, but I love your voice." Because Winter is like such like a, you know, stoic, you know, character. And I'm in the booth and I'm like, because like I said, I use my body a lot when I voice act, so that was kind of like derp. Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back this morning.